Tensions are escalating dramatically between the state of Illinois and the Trump administration over the planned deployment of National Guard members to the Chicago area. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker announced yesterday that the administration intends to federalize 300 members of the Illinois National Guard. This move comes amid ongoing and often volatile protests against federal immigration enforcement, during which officials report that federal officers were recently rammed with a vehicle and fired upon. Governor Pritzker has vehemently opposed the move, accusing the White House of deliberately trying to stoke conflict for political gain. In a fiery statement on October 4th, Pritzker revealed that the Department of War had issued an ultimatum. Either he mobilizes the state's guard under his command, or the federal government will do it directly by federalizing the troops. The governor called the demand absolutely outrageous and un-American, stating that it pulls hard-working Americans from their jobs and families to participate in what he termed a manufactured performance, rather than a serious public safety mission. He asserted that for President Trump, the action has never been about safety, but about control. This confrontation brings to the forefront the contentious national debate over the use of federal forces within American cities. The act of federalizing a state's National Guard against the express will of its governor is a rare and constitutionally fraught maneuver, raising significant questions about the principles of federalism and the balance of power between state and federal governments. It also touches on the spirit, if not the letter, of laws like the Posse Comitatus Act, which restricts using the military for domestic law enforcement. This dispute over immigration enforcement is unfolding as the Trump administration's broader immigration policies face continued legal challenges. In a significant ruling on Saturday, a federal judge temporarily blocked the administration from implementing a new policy that would transfer underage migrants to adult detention centers once they turn 18. U.S. District Judge Rudolph Contreras stated that the new directive violates a previous court order he issued in 2021, which explicitly forbade U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, from moving any migrant to an adult facility upon their 18th birthday. Currently, underage migrants are housed in shelters run by the Department of Health and Human Services, which are designed to be less restrictive and provide educational and social services. A transfer to an adult ICE detention center would represent a drastic shift to a punitive, prison-like environment. Immigration rights groups, who filed the emergency request, argued that such a move would cause irreparable harm. Michelle Lapointe, a lawyer for the American Immigration Council, framed the blocked policy as one of several pieces of the same general policy to coerce immigrant youth into giving up their right to seek protection in the United States. This legal setback for the administration comes as it simultaneously offers a new incentive for teen migrants to leave the country. According to reports, the Office of Refugee Resettlement is now offering a $2,500 stipend to teens who agree to depart the U.S. voluntarily. This follows another recent judicial intervention last month, where a different judge blocked the administration from deporting certain Guatemalan minors, stating the government failed to prove the children's parents actually wanted them returned. The Justice Department is also turning its attention to the conduct of local law enforcement during protests. Federal officials have launched a civil rights investigation into the Portland Police Department over concerns of possible viewpoint discrimination in its policing tactics. The probe was announced on October 3rd by Harmeet Dillon, the Justice Department's Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. In a formal letter, Dillon stated the investigation centers on the Police Bureau's response to incidents surrounding the Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in the city. The inquiry was specifically triggered by the arrest of conservative journalist Nick Sorter, who was covering protests there. The letter explicitly notes that the investigation will examine whether the city used its policing powers in a manner that discriminates based on political viewpoint. Portland has a long and documented history of intense, and sometimes violent, clashes between protesters and law enforcement, particularly between politically opposed groups like the Proud Boys and Antifa demonstrators. Critics have long alleged that Portland police have at times been either overly aggressive with left-wing protesters or too passive in confronting right-wing groups. A federal investigation into viewpoint discrimination suggests the Justice Department is now formally scrutinizing whether police have been applying the law unevenly. Such federal probes are significant and can often lead to court-enforced agreements, known as consent decrees, that mandate specific, long-term reforms within a police department. From policing to the judiciary, a federal judge's decision in a high-profile case is now drawing intense criticism and a planned appeal from the Justice Department itself. Judge Deborah Boardman, a Biden appointee, has sentenced Nicholas Rosk to 8 years in prison for the 2022 attempted assassination of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. The sentence has been widely condemned by conservatives as shockingly lenient. Federal prosecutors had argued for a sentence of at least 30 years, while Rosk's defense team had requested the 8-year term that was ultimately imposed. The assassination attempt occurred in June 2022, when Rosk traveled from California to Justice Kavanaugh's home in Maryland. He was arrested nearby after calling 911 on himself, telling the dispatcher he was having suicidal and homicidal thoughts and had come to kill a specific Supreme Court justice. He was found in possession of a handgun, ammunition, a knife, and tactical gear. In her sentencing, Judge Boardman acknowledged Roski's actions were reprehensible, but cited mitigating factors, including that Rosk spontaneously confessed to and cooperated with police. The decision sparked outrage, with critics like conservative lawyer Mike Davis calling the judge a national disgrace. The case has also been complicated by the fact that Rosk now identifies as a woman, with some critics accusing the judge of factoring this into the sentence. In response, Attorney General Pam Bondi announced Friday that the Justice Department will appeal, calling the sentence woefully insufficient and stating it does not reflect the horrific facts of this case and the grave threat posed to a member of the nation's highest court. Finally, in major international news, President Donald Trump has announced a significant potential breakthrough in the Gaza conflict. In a statement posted on Truth Social yesterday, the president said that Israel has agreed to an initial withdrawal line in Gaza. This agreement is a central component of a new peace plan brokered by his administration, which aims to end the long and devastating war and secure the release of all remaining hostages held by Hamas. According to the president, the terms of the deal are now in the hands of Hamas for approval. President Trump stated, "When Hamas confirms, the ceasefire will be immediately effective. The hostages and prisoner exchange will begin." He added that this would create the conditions for the next phase of withdrawal, which he hopes will bring the region closer to ending what he dramatically called a 3,000-year catastrophe. The announcement marks the most promising sign of a potential de-escalation after numerous previous attempts at a lasting ceasefire have failed amid the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The concept of an initial withdrawal line suggests a phased approach, where Israeli forces would pull back from certain areas as a first step, likely in exchange for an initial group of hostages. The success of the entire U.S. brokered proposal now hinges on the response from Hamas, which faces its own internal pressures. The international community is watching with bated breath, as an agreement would represent a monumental step toward ending the conflict and returning the remaining hostages. However, until Hamas officially responds, the situation remains critically uncertain,